Starry night, the moon is bright, we'll sing a happy song.
Wow, spot!
Hello there, this is Lisa Chen talking from Calgary, Canada. Today, let's continue to recite the story Alice in Wonderland. In our last episode, we talked about Alice found herself growing, and the dormouse who was sitting next to her was a little upset. Let's continue. Yes, but I grow at a reasonable pace, said the dormouse. Not in that ridiculous fashion. And he got up very sulkily and crossed over to the other side of the court. All this time, the queen had never left off staring at the hatter. And just as the dormouse crossed the court, she said to one of the officers of the court, "Bring me the list of singers in the last concert." On which the wretched hatter trembled so that he shook off both his shoes. "Give your evidence," the king repeated angrily, "or I'll have you executed, whether you are nervous or not." "I'm a poor man, your majesty," the hatter began, in a trembling voice. "And I hadn't begun my tea, not above a week or so, and what with the bread and butter getting so thin, and the twinkling of the tea." "The twinkling of what?" said the king. "It began with the tea," the hatter replied. "Of course twinkling begins with a T," said the king sharply. "Do you take me for a dunce? Go on." "I'm a poor man," the hatter went on, "and most things twinkled after that, only the March hare said—" "I didn't," the March hare interrupted in a great hurry. "You did," said the hatter. "I deny it," said the March hare. "He denies it," said the king. "Leave out that part." "Well, at any rate, the dormouse said," the hatter went on, looking anxiously round to see if he would deny it too, but the dormouse denied nothing, being fast asleep. "After that," continued the hatter, "I cut some more bread and butter." "But what did the dormouse say?" one of the jury asked. "That I can't remember," said the hatter. "You must remember," remarked the king, "or I'll have you executed." The miserable hatter dropped his teacup and bread and butter and went down on one knee. "I'm a poor man, your majesty," he began. "You are a very poor speaker," said the king. Here, one of the guinea pigs cheered, and was immediately suppressed by the officers of the court. As that is rather a hard word, I will just explain to you how it was done. They had a large canvas bag, which tied up at the mouth with strings. Into this they slipped the guinea pig, head first, and then sat upon it. "I'm glad I've seen that done," thought Alice. "I've so often read in the newspapers at the end of trials." There was some applause, which was immediately suppressed by the officers of the court, and I never understood what it meant until now. "If that's all you know about it, you may stand down," continued the king. "I can't go no lower," said the hatter. "I'm on the floor as it is." "Then you may sit down," the king replied. Here the other guinea pig cheered and was suppressed. "Come, that finishes the guinea pigs," thought Alice. "Now we shall get on better." "I'd rather finish my tea," said the hatter, with an anxious look at the queen, who was reading the list of singers. "You may go," said the king, and the hatter hurriedly left the court without even waiting to put his shoes on. "And just take his head off outside," the queen added to one of the officers, but the hatter was out of sight before the officer could get to the door. "Call the next witness," said the king. The next witness was the duchess's cook. She carried pepper box in her hand, and Alice guessed who it was, even before she got into the court, by the way the people near the door began sneezing all at once. "Give your evidence," said the king. "Shan't," said the cook. The king looked anxiously at the white rabbit, who said, in a low voice, "Your Majesty must cross-examine this witness." "Well, if I must, I must," the king said with a melancholy air, and after folding his arms and frowning at the cook till his eyes were nearly out of sight, he said in a deep voice, "What are tarts made of?" "Pepper, mostly," said the cook. "Treacle," said a sleepy voice behind her. "Collar the dormouse!" the queen shrieked out. "Behead the dormouse! Turn the dormouse out of court! Suppress him! Pinch him! Off with his whiskers!" For some minutes, the whole court was in confusion, getting the dormouse turned out, and by the time they had settled down again, the cook had disappeared. "Never mind," said the king, with an air of great relief. "Call the next witness." And he added, in an undertone to the queen, "Really, my dear, you must cross-examine the next witness. It quite makes my forehead ache." Alice watched the white rabbit as he fumbled over the list, feeling very curious to see what the next witness would be like. "For they haven't got much evidence yet," she said to herself. Imagine her surprise when the white rabbit read out at the top of his shrill little voice the name Alice. In this part of the story, there is one wordplay I think is very worth mentioning. In the conversation between the king and the witness Hatter, the Hatter goes, "I hadn't begun my tea, not above a week or so, and what with the bread and butter getting so thin, and the twinkling of the tea." And then the king said, "The twinkling of what?" And the Hatter replied, "It began with the tea." And the king replied, "Of course, twinkling begins with a T, a letter T." This is a very interesting word play that the author enjoyed doing in this story. And another scene in this episode is about the guinea pigs. Why he talked about guinea pigs cheered and was immediately suppressed by the officers of the court. It takes a little explanation to understand what he meant. So in the story, in the text, he actually wrote a passage in brackets saying, as that is rather a hard word, I will just explain to you how it was done. They had a large canvas bag which tied up at the mouth with strings. Into this, they slipped the guinea pig head first and then sat upon it. What does it really mean here is, in a Victorian time in England, during the trials, if there is applause or cheer among the audience, they will be suppressed by the officers, which means they will be maybe removed at once by the officers. So in the story of this trial, the guinea pigs cheered. So the guinea pigs were immediately suppressed by the officers. By doing what? The guinea pigs were being taken and slipped inside a big canvas sack, a big bag, and then the bag being set upon. So that's how the guinea pigs were punished. And the end of this chapter finished at a very exciting note, which was when the white rabbit announced the next witness was going to be Alice. Okay, so what will happen to Alice? And this actually concludes this chapter. We're going to enter into the very last chapter of this whole story, Alice in Wonderland, which is called Alice's Evidence. In our next episode, we're going to see what is going to happen to Alice when she was going to be the next witness. Of course, maybe some of you will say she is going to wake up from her dream. We will see.
Starry night, the moon is bright, we'll sing a happy song.
Wow, Spot!